400 meters, turn right. Turn right. Continue straight. In 400 meters, turn left. Turn left.
When you got to the hospital, what did you find out?
When I arrived in hospital, my hands and feet were
Continue straight.
solid. The staff there are incredible. They did everything they could to try and sort my body out. Basically, I fell into what's known as septic shock. There was so much dead material in my hands and feet that my body couldn't cope. And it was while I was unconscious that the doctors and surgeons had to take that excruciating decision to amputate both hands and both feet.
When you regained consciousness, when you came around, how did you cope with what had happened to you?
I mean, there's no way I can describe the shock I had at this, looking down my hospital bed and seeing that my hands and feet were gone forever. You know, I just first thought that life couldn't ever be worthwhile again, that there was no way I could ever put myself back together again, and that I would have been better off just dying up there on the mountain alongside my friend Jamie.
And apart from that despair or depression that you felt initially, what other emotions did you experience?
I had all sorts of really confusing emotions. I was so relieved to be alive. At the same time, I was angry at myself, angry at Jamie for not having made it down alive. And then there was the guilt of having survived when he hadn't. I was the lucky one here. I was the one that had survived. And then really, I
In 500 meters,
to make the most of this
keep
second
right at the
chance and just to
fork.
give it a go and find out what was possible without hands and feet. The key thing is I started to see things in a positive light. I started to look at the positive in this predicament that I was in.
So it changed you as a person, you think?
Well, no, I wouldn't say it changed me.
Keep right at the fork.
I didn't turn into a new person overnight, certainly not. Being a quadruple amputee, having no hands and feet, is pretty rare. And
Continue
so
straight.
having the chance to go out and be the first quadruple amputee to do so many different things, and that's been just so exciting and so fun and so challenging. I often think that losing my hands and feet was one of the best things that ever happened to me.
When you went into rehab, you had to learn to adjust to life without your hands and feet. What did it involve, the rehab? Can you just describe it?
Well, at first it was just a very simple thing. Picking up a spoon and feeding myself, or brushing my teeth, or pulling my clothes on, or of course learning to walk with my prosthetic legs. But what I found was every time I achieved one of these small goals, it was a victory, you know. It was like some kind of small piece of my self-esteem that had been won back. As I began to learn to do all those everyday things again, I started to have dreams again of getting out into the hills. My hospital bedroom faced out onto the Pentland Hills south of Edinburgh, and they're very gentle, grassy, rolling hills, and I thought maybe one day I'll be strong enough to be able to walk in those hills again.
I think a lot of people that went through an ordeal like yours would never want to go near a mountain again.
It was difficult at first. I did have to make my
Continue straight.
come to terms with what had happened, and for me, part of that process was returning to the Alps once more. I went back a year after the accident. You know, we flew in a helicopter over the place where Jamie and I had been trapped, and looked at the spot. And realised it wasn't the mountains that were to blame, that this was a human tragedy.
Tell me a little bit about what it's like to climb with prosthetic legs. How does it feel different?
Well, for a start, without any hands, it's really hard because I'm climbing with bare arms, so the rock's really rough and I can soon get scratched and bruised, and I've got to pull with the severed ends of my stumps and pull up on the handholds using them. But also I'm climbing with false legs, so I can't feel anything with my feet. My ankles don't bend, and so every footstep that I make, I've got to lift the leg carefully and place it down and see that it's placed on the hold before trusting it to stand up on it and place the next one.
In August 2013, you decided to climb the Matterhorn.
Yeah, so
Why?
well, it's such an iconic peak. It really is the most recognisable peak in Europe. It's that classic pyramid shape.
Nearly 15,000 feet high.
It is, and it's still one of the hardest mountains to climb in the Alps.
And tough psychologically, I think, because you were due to climb it a year earlier, but that attempt had to be cancelled because of the death of your climbing partner, Roger Payne, who was killed by an avalanche.
Yeah, that was a tragic event. Roger was a great friend of mine, and we planned this Matterhorn climb together. In 2012, there was a big avalanche on Mont Blanc that claimed the lives of 12, 13 people, I think. Sadly, Roger was among those, and so that was the end of my attempt at climbing the Matterhorn for that year. Unfortunately, my friend Steve Jones was able to step in and act as my guide in Roger's place. We always knew that the main difficulty though was going to be timing, so there was no plan to spend the night on the mountain or anything like that. The idea was get up in the day and back down again the same day. There was no way we could do the last 250 metres safely and back down and leave enough time to get off the mountain.
So you didn't make it all the way to the summit?
We got to within 250 metres of the top in spitting distance. It was just so frustrating to get so close and yet to have to take a very difficult decision to turn around and go back down again.
And you've taken other challenges apart from climbing, haven't you, to raise money for charity?
Yeah, I guess I enjoy a challenge. So
Sounds like it.
So it started out with running the London Marathon, then took that one step further a few years ago when I did an Ironman triathlon.
What's an Ironman triathlon?
So an Ironman involves a 2.4-mile swim in open water, followed by a 112-mile cycle, and then rounded off with a full marathon, 26.2 miles. That was by far the most grueling thing I've ever done in a day.
In a day you did that?
Yeah, absolutely awful actually. It's just really, really tough. I raised a lot of money for charity, so that was fantastic.
When you're doing all these incredible feats, do you think sometimes about Jamie Fisher?
I like to think that I carry his memory always, I know that if he'd been in my place and he'd survived and I hadn't, he'd be getting on with it, he'd be achieving incredible things. I really feel that I'm charged with the responsibility of living life for both of us. That's part of my drive to achieve the goals that I set myself is in Jamie's memory.
Jamie Andrew. You can see a photo of him on our Facebook page, and Dorino Day from Liberia has left a comment there. He said, "Never give up, James, because your everyday happiness comes from when you're climbing these beautiful mountains." Thanks, Dorino, and please everyone else, do keep these comments coming. We love to hear from you.
Science on BBC World Service.
Discovery.
Sharks in general have a large battery of senses which are very important and have really put them in good stead over the last 400 million years.
Health check.
Finding out that I don't have the gene would be amazing. Finding out that I do have the gene feels like it's more of a death sentence. And that feels like a huge risk.
Click.
We showed up with 2 3D printers and some tools, and eventually were able to get an arm made for Daniel that allowed him to feed himself for the first time in 2 years.
And science in action.
I really didn't think that this would be seen in my lifetime. We are now able to experimentally probe our own origins, and that is just a mind-boggling thing to say.
Programs that bring science to life. Monday to Thursday at 18:30 GMT. And the Science Hour every Sunday at 13 GMT on the BBC World Service.
A journalist and former friend of Robert Mugabe, looks back over the Zimbabwean Prime Minister's 34 years in power.
I'm glad we had the relationship. I'm glad I got to know him well at a time when he really cared about the country, when he really cared about the people. I don't think he cares for people now.
Also, a message in a bottle sent